The sharp crash of glass shattering against the worn wooden floor pierced the Friday night hum of the Fortress Tavern, a dimly lit haven for veterans in a quiet Texas town. "Who the hell do you think you are spilling crap all over a Marine's uniform?" bellowed Lance Corporal Thorne, his voice booming like thunder across the crowded bar. Elena Harper, the slender waitress with smooth white skin and blonde hair, tied in a low ponytail, knelt quietly to gather the broken shards. Her hands appeared to tremble, her piercing blue eyes cast downward, drawing mocking laughter from the group of burly Marines. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, barely audible, as Thorne rose, his muscles bulging under his half-unbuttoned uniform. He grabbed her collar, yanking her up. "Sorry ain't gonna cut it, lady." Patrons turned to watch some pulling out phones, but no one stepped in. No one dared challenge drunk Marines on a night like this. Thorne's hand reared back as if to strike, but Elena stood there, shoulders hunched, looking like a fragile soul cornered. Yet in that tense silence, no one in the packed bar realized they were witnessing the calm before a storm. This seemingly weak woman would soon become the only reason any of them survived the night. If you've ever been judged or underestimated based on how you look, especially in your golden years, when wisdom runs deep but strength is questioned, this tale of hidden resilience will resonate straight to your heart, reminding you that true power often hides in plain sight. But what no one noticed was Elena's quick, calculated glance at every exit in the room, her blue eyes flashing with a steely determination that hinted at secrets buried deep. It was the kind of look that spoke of battles fought and won far from this small-town bar, in the heart of a sleepy Texas town, where dusty roads met endless horizons, and the air carried the faint scent of mesquite smoke. Elena Harper had carved out a quiet existence at the Fortress Tavern. This old watering hole wasn't just any bar, it was a sanctuary for veterans, a place where faded medals pinned to denim jackets told stories of sacrifice, and the walls were lined with black and white photos of heroes from wars long past. Elena moved through the dim light like a shadow, wiping down sticky counters and pouring drafts with a steady hand that belied the storms raging inside her. She was a single woman in her mid-30s, beautiful in a way that turned heads without trying, smooth white skin that glowed under the neon signs, sharp facial features, framed by piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through people, and blonde hair, always tied in a low ponytail for practicality. Her body was toned and athletic, sculpted from years of hidden military training. Strong shoulders, a full bust that filled out her modest black serving shirt, and a decisive posture that spoke of quiet command, though she hid it behind humble gestures and downcast glances. To the regulars, she was just that nice gal behind the bar, overlooked and underestimated. The younger crowd fresh from deployments or weekend warriors saw her as little more than decoration. "Hey, sweetheart, stick to pouring beers, you wouldn't last a day in the real fight," one cocky sergeant had sneered one evening, his buddies chuckling, as if her gender alone disqualified her from understanding their world. It stung, echoing the gender biases she'd known all too well in the U.S. military, where women like her, strong, capable, were often dismissed as too soft, or just support. For older patrons, many in their 60s and 70s, who'd served in Vietnam or Korea, it reminded them of their own battles against prejudice, whether racial, social, or simply the weight of age. They'd nod sympathetically, sharing tales over whiskey about how society wrote off the wise and weathered, much like they did Elena now. But beneath that unassuming facade lay a profound wound that drove her seclusion. Elena wasn't always this ghost of a woman. In a short, haunting flashback that played in her mind like an old reel, she remembered the day everything shattered. It was in the dusty heat of Afghanistan 2020, the year etched forever in her soul. Her husband, Sergeant Ryan Harper, a fellow Marine with a laugh that could light up the darkest bunker, had led a convoy through hostile territory. The body armor they wore, supplied through shady contracts, riddled with corruption, failed spectacularly against an IED blast. Ryan died in her arms, his blood soaking her uniform, as she desperately applied pressure, her medical training kicking in too late. Worse still, their young son, visiting a forward base for a rare family moment, was caught in the shrapnel, gone in an instant, his innocent smile forever stolen. The official report called it enemy action, but Elena knew better. Faulty gear from a network of arms dealers cutting corners for profit had turned heroes into statistics. 17 Marines lost that year to similar defects, each one a scar on her conscience. She'd faked her death in the aftermath, going dark to hunt the corrupt syndicate responsible, living anonymously in Texas to blend in among the very veterans she once fought beside. The Fortress Tavern became her cover, a place to listen, observe, and wait. Yet the isolation gnawed at her nights alone in her small apartment, staring at faded photos of Ryan and their boy whispering promises of justice. It was a life of profound loss, symbolizing not just personal grief, but the broader wounds of a nation that sometimes failed its warriors. For Elena, every mocking glance or dismissive word was a reminder strength wasn't always loud or visible. It simmered quietly, waiting for the right moment to emerge, much like the resilient spirit she'd seen in the older vets who frequented the bar, folks who'd overcome their own prejudices and pains, proving that true valor endured through the years. The evening at the Fortress Tavern wore on like so many before, the low hum of conversations blending with the clink of glasses and the occasional burst of laughter from old comrades sharing war stories. But tonight felt different, charged like the air before a Texas thunderstorm. Elena was midway through her shift, her toned arms efficiently stacking clean mugs, when a group of rowdy men in partially unbuttoned Marine uniforms sauntered in. They claimed a corner table, their laughter too loud, their postures too rehearsed. Leading them was a hulking figure with a thick Eastern European accent that sliced through the room like a knife. Ivan Kovac, though Elena knew him by another name from her shadowed past. His face bore familiar scars, a jagged line across his cheek from a knife fight in Mosul, and a burn mark on his neck she'd seen in classified dossiers. At first, they seemed like just another pack of boisterous vets, ordering rounds with aggressive flair. But Elena's piercing blue eyes narrowed as she served them. The accents didn't match their claimed Midwestern roots. The way they scanned the room screamed reconnaissance, not relaxation. One of them, a wiry man with a limp, deliberately knocked over his beer, spilling it across the floor. "Oops, clean it up, darling." He sneered, his words dripping with the same gender biases she'd endured in the Corps women, like her reduced to servants, never warriors. As she knelt again, her humble gestures masking her decisiveness, Elena overheard their whispered plans. They were here to steal classified information hidden in the bar's safe. Jake, the owner, had stashed data on the arms corruption network, proof of faulty gear that killed her family and countless others. This wasn't random. Kovac's syndicate had targeted the tavern as a hub for veteran intel, aiming to silence whistleblowers and bury their crimes. Her heart pounded, vivid recollections flooding back like a desert flash flood. She saw Ryan's face again, his warm smile fading in the Afghan dust, as the IED exploded, the defective armor crumpling like paper. Their son's tiny hand slipping from hers, amid the chaos, innocent lives traded for profit. How many more families would suffer if she did nothing? The prejudices from the bar's patrons echoed louder, now fueling her resolve. These imposters threatened not just the data, but the community of elders who'd become her surrogate family. The Vietnam vets sharing wisdom over coffee, the double-the-wood wheat survivors, like Edith, who'd overcome their own biases. In her mind, Elena began counting down 17 minutes until their extraction window closed, her tactical awareness kicking in like muscle memory. She cataloged their weapons, concealed bulges under jackets, and escape routes, her hidden skills, bubbling to the surface. This was her call to adventure, a mission thrust upon her to protect the vulnerable, honor the fallen, and dismantle the corruption that stole her world. But could she risk exposing herself after years in hiding? The tension built, her blue eyes flickering with unspoken fire, leaving everyone, patrons and intruders alike, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break. As the seconds ticked down in Elena's mind, 16 minutes now, the weight of the moment pressed on her like the desert sun she'd once endured in Afghanistan. Her tactical instincts screamed to act, to turn the tables on these imposters with the precision she'd honed in the Corps. But deep inside, a quieter voice pleaded for retreat. Why risk it all? She'd built this fragile peace in Texas, a life where no one knew her as Major Elena Harper, the sniper who'd vanished after that fateful blast. Revealing herself could unravel everything, expose her to the syndicate's hunters, drag her back into the shadows of loss that still haunted her nights. PTSD wasn't just a diagnosis. It was a living ghost, manifesting in sweat-soaked dreams, where Ryan's final breath echoed and their son's cries faded into silence. The therapy sessions she'd attended in secret had taught her the science of it, hypervigilance from trauma, the brain's amygdala firing like a faulty trigger, trapping her in fight or flight. Tonight, flight seemed safer. Let them take the data. She could vanish again, start over somewhere else. Nearly she convinced herself to walk away, her hands still pretending to tremble as she mopped the spilled beer. The mockery escalated, fueling the fire. Thorne's crew spread out, subtly controlling the space like predators, Rodriguez by the door, Wilson floating between tables. "Look at her boys shaking like a leaf," Thorne laughed, his voice laced with disdain. "Women like you belong in the kitchen, not messing with real men's business." The words cut deep, echoing the biases she'd fought in the military, dismissed promotions, sidelined missions because ladies can't handle the heat. Even her colleagues piled on unknowingly. Maria, the other waitress, a kind-hearted woman in her 50s who'd lost a brother in Vietnam, stepped forward with concern. "Elena, honey, you're too weak for this. Just back off before you get hurt." The doubt stung, causing a swell of frustration that any senior listener might recognize from their own lives, being written off as past their prime, their wisdom ignored in favor of brute youth. The patrons, many gray-haired vets nursing their drinks, shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent, their own prejudices or fears holding them back. In that charged silence, Thorne kicked over another glass, grinding his boot into the shards. "Clean it, weakling." Elena knelt once more, her athletic frame coiled beneath the modest shirt, but inside turmoil raged. Then a small twist shattered her hesitation. As she reached for a towel, a worn photo slipped from her pocket, the one of her son beaming in his little marine cap, taken just before the end. Her fingers brushed it, and a surge of resolve flooded her veins like adrenaline in combat. Ryan's voice echoed in her memory. "Fight for what's right, Elle, even when it hurts." But outwardly, she maintained the facade, whispering another apology, her blue eyes downcast to mislead them all. This deception wasn't cowardice, it was strategy buying time. Yet the internal battle lingered, her heart torn between the peace she craved and the justice her family deserved. For now, she refused the full call, teetering on the edge, unaware that fate and an unlikely ally would soon push her over. In the thickening tension of the Fortress Tavern, as Thorne's crew hovered like wolves, and Elena's mind wrestled with the ghosts of her past, an unexpected voice cut through the haze. Mrs. Edith O'Connor, a spry 78-year-old regular, with silver hair pinned back and eyes sharp as a hawk's, pushed back her chair at a corner table. She'd been nursing a cup of black coffee, her faded Army Nurse Corps pin glinting under the lights, a relic from Puebla that few noticed anymore. But Edith noticed everything. As Elena knelt in that deceptive pose, her weight balanced on the balls of her feet, in a subtle combat-ready stance, Edith's gaze locked on. It was the kind of posture she'd seen in foxholes across Europe, where survival depended on readiness disguised as surrender. "Child," Edith said softly, her voice carrying the gravel of decades, "you hold yourself, like someone who's danced with death before." Elena paused, her blue eyes meeting Edith's for the first time that night. This wasn't just a kindly elder. This was a bridge to history, a woman who'd stormed beaches and bandaged the broken during the greatest conflict the world had known. Edith motioned her over, away from the mocking stares, and in that moment, Elena found her mentor, an ally forged in the fires of shared resilience. "Sit a spell," Edith urged, her wrinkled hand steady as she poured Elena a glass of water. She recounted her dosibuntup memories with the quiet power of someone who'd lived them, enlisting at 18 against her family's wishes, facing down male doctors who called her just a pretty face, unfit for the front lines. They said women couldn't handle the blood, the bombs, the bias. Edith said, her eyes distant yet fierce. But we did. We stitched up heroes under fire, made split-second decisions that saved lives. Discipline wasn't just orders. It was the steel in your spine when the world said you were weak. Resilience. That's getting up after they've knocked you down time and again. Her words touched on life skills born from that era, the unyielding focus to triage chaos, the inner fortitude to push through prejudice. Lessons that echoed the struggles of so many seniors listening. Now those who'd overcome their own eras of doubt and discrimination. To illustrate, Edith pulled a yellowed envelope from her purse, family letters from the war, penned by her late husband from the Pacific Front. He wrote, "Edith, your strength keeps me going. Parallels your pain, doesn't it? Loss carves us, but it doesn't break us." The letters, filled with heartfelt pleas and promises, mirrored Elena's wounds, touching her heart with a compassion that bridged generations. Inspired, Edith slipped Elena an old military medical kit from her bag, quick clot gauze, and trauma shears from the 1940s, still functional. "We women are stronger than they think," she whispered, her words, a rallying cry against the biases Elena faced daily. As if summoned by the shift in energy, allies emerged from the shadows. Jake, the bar owner and former CIA operative in his 60s, caught Elena's eye from behind the counter, a subtle tactical nod, acknowledging her hidden prowess. Marcus, the burly security guard and ex-SEAL, with a limp from Desert Storm, positioned himself nearer his shared glance, conveying trust earned through unspoken veteran bonds. They didn't know her full story yet, but Edith's endorsement sealed it. These were her teammates, now ready to stand with her. Bolstered by this guidance, Elena felt the refusal in her heart begin to crack the mentor's wisdom and allies' quiet support, refreshing her resolve, turning doubt into determination. For the first time that night, she wasn't alone in the fight. Edith's words echoed in Elena's mind like a battle cry from across the decades. "We women are stronger than they think." With Jake's subtle nod from behind the bar and Marcus shifting his stance to cover her flank, the doubt that had gripped her heart finally shattered. No more hiding. The call to justice for Ryan, their son, and the 17 fallen Marines demanded action. Elena's decision crystallized in an instant. She would confront these shadows from her past, transforming the Fortress Tavern from a quiet refuge into a calculated trap. Drawing on her hidden skills, she slipped a hand into her apron pocket, activating a concealed device she'd rigged weeks ago, a compact jammer tied to the bar's electrical system. The lights flickered twice, then plunged into partial darkness. Magnetic locks engaging on the doors with a soft, ominous click. This wasn't random sabotage. It was frequency-hopping spectrum technology at work, a military innovation born from double era, needs to evade enemy jamming. By rapidly switching frequencies in a pseudo-random sequence, it prevented hacks, ensuring signals stayed secure, like dodging bullets in electronic warfare. Elena had learned it in the Corps, where anti-jamming meant the difference between mission success and catastrophe. A lesson in resilience that mirrored Edith's stories of outsmarting foes under fire. Stepping fully into this dangerous world, Elena maintained her facade of weakness, her blue eyes downcast, as Kovach's group revealed their true colors. No longer playing drunk Marines, they dropped the act with chilling efficiency, weapons appearing in their hands, sleek pistols drawn from concealed holsters. Everyone down. This ain't a game anymore. Kovach growled, his scarred face twisting in the dim emergency lights. The patrons gasped, dropping to the floor, but Elena remained standing, her slender frame, a picture of vulnerability. Inside, though, her mind raced like a well-oiled machine, cataloging exits, 3 doors, 2 windows, 1 back, alley, emergency hatch, assessing positions, noting Rodriguez's limp that slowed him near the kitchen, Wilson's predatory grin as he herded the crowd. It was tactical awareness honed in combat zones, the kind that kept you alive when odds turned grim. The first real challenge erupted in a mini-climax that hooked the room and any listener with raw tension. Thompson, one of Kovach's men, deliberately upended another beer, the amber liquid pooling at Elena's feet. "Clean it up, weakling, earn your keep," he sneered, his words laced with the same biases that had plagued her military days. She knelt once more, her toned body bending in apparent submission, but every muscle was coiled, ready to spring into action. Her full bust rose and fell with controlled breaths, combat breathing in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, to steady her heart rate amid the rising chaos. The audience might feel the frustration boiling. How dare they underestimate her? Yet this deception misled them all, buying precious seconds as the trap tightened. Screams echoed as the group demanded the safe's location, their guns waving. Elena's hand brushed her medical kit fingers, itching for the trauma shears Edith had given tools from another era, now her edge in this modern fight. The bar, once a haven for weary veterans sharing tales of perseverance, had become a battlefield, testing Elena's resolve against real threats. But with her allies watching and her family's memory fueling her, she was ready to cross into the fray, her inner strength awakening like a storm on the Texas plains. The dim emergency lights cast long shadows across the Fortress Tavern, turning familiar faces into strangers as Kovach's men tightened their grip on the room. Elena remained, knelt amid the spilled beer, her outward submission a masterful ruse, but inside her sniper's mind was already mapping the battlefield. This was the true crossing into a series of escalating tests that would forge her alliances, expose her enemies, and push her to the brink. The multi-layered conflicts unfolded like layers of an onion, external threats from the armed intruders, internal doubts from her makeshift team, and the ever-present inner turmoil of her scarred past. Each challenge built frustration, a slow burn designed to make the eventual payoff sweeter, reminding listeners of their own trials, those quiet battles against bias and loss that define a life well lived. The first challenge hit like a wave of harassment, the henchmen escalating their mockery to draw out any resistance. Rodriguez, with his telltale limp from an old IED in Iraq, circled Elena slowly, his Eastern European accent thickening as he taunted. "Look at this one, boys, quivering like she ain't never seen a real man before." Wilson joined in, shoving a patron aside and barking orders to herd the crowd tighter, their movements subtle but tactical, establishing fields of fire without drawing alarm. Elena endured it all, her piercing blue eyes lowered as she gathered shards with deliberate slowness, using the time to collect intel, counting their weapons. 4 pistols, 1 concealed knife on Thorn, and noting their formation, a loose perimeter that screamed mercenary training. The frustration mounted for anyone watching. How could they belittle her, so reducing a woman of her quiet strength to a punchline? It echoed the gender slights so many senior women had faced from factory floors during the war years to boardrooms today. But endurance bred opportunity, and allies began to solidify in the chaos. Mrs. Edith O'Connor, that unassuming double-double nurse, didn't flinch. As Thompson lunged toward Elena, with another spill, deliberate amber liquid splashing her shoes, Edith rose with surprising agility. "Leave her be, you brutes," she commanded, her voice steady from years of battlefield commands, when Thompson shoved her, laughing off the old lady. Edith executed a perfect heel stomp to his instep, followed by an elbow to his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping as she rolled away with the grace of someone half her age. The twist hit like a revelation. This wasn't just a nurse. Edith had trained in basic self-defense martial arts during the war, part of the Women's Army Corps program that taught evasion and counterattacks against enemy captures. 3 tours in Europe, she said, calmly adjusting her cardigan. "You think you're the first bully I've put down?" The room's elders, those Vietnam and Korea vets, nodded in quiet admiration, their own memories stirring. Jake, the former CIA bar owner, whispered into a hidden mic, coordinating with Marcus, the ex-SEAL security, who coiled like a spring by the door. These allies weren't random. They were a network of hidden strengths, building around Elena, as she endured her humble gestures, now a shield for gathering force. Yet the enemies deepened the peril, none more so than Ivan Kovac himself. This Eastern European boss, with his scarred visage and cold calculation, wasn't a faceless thug. He was the architect of Elena's nightmare. Years ago, in the shadows of covert ops, their paths had crossed Kovac. Then a rising arms dealer sold defective body armor to U.S. forces for quick profit, causing 17 soldiers' deaths in a single convoy ambush, including Ryan and their son. The scars on his cheek and neck Elena's doing from a knife skirmish in a Baghdad safe house where she'd nearly ended him. Now his personal vendetta burned bright. "I know that look," he muttered, eyeing her kneel. "You're familiar, woman." His syndicate thrived on corruption, peddling faulty gear that turned wars into profit machines, preying on the very veterans who filled this bar. The external conflict layered with this history made the stakes personal, frustrating in its injustice. How many lives ruined for greed? The second challenge struck internally, opposition from within her growing circle that misled everyone, including the listeners. As the henchman demanded the safe, Marcus, the burly ex-SEAL, hesitated, visibly pretending to doubt Elena's role. "Wait, Jake, she's just a waitress. What if she's in over her head?" He whispered loudly enough for Kovac's men to overhear his words, a calculated ploy to draw them out. This feigned skepticism echoed the capability biases Elena had refused earlier, building audience frustration. Even allies questioned her. But it was deception at its finest, buying time. Elena, sensing the play, steadied herself with combat breathing techniques, a war tactic rooted in physiology. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4. It slowed her heart rate, calming the autonomic nervous system by activating the parasympathetic response, reducing adrenaline spikes that clouded judgment. She'd learned it in sniper school, where a steady pulse meant the difference between hit and miss, a skill that mirrored the resilience Edith preached, controlling the body to master the mind under pressure. The tests culminated in a mini-climax that ratcheted the tension hitting around the 15-minute mark in the tale's unfolding. As Thorne grabbed Elena's wrist to yank her up, his grip meant to bruise, he felt the unexpected her arm wasn't soft, but corded with muscle from thousands of pull-ups and pack marches. In the struggle, her sleeve tore slightly, revealing a straight, clean scar on her forearm, a knife wound from that long-ago clash with Kovac, sutured in a field hospital, where pros like Edith once worked. The enemies recognized it dimly. "That mark. She's no civilian," Rodriguez hissed, but they misjudged, laughing it off as some old scratch from a kitchen accident. Their dismissal of her as broken, despite the evidence-fueled persistent gender biases, the assumption that a woman's scars couldn't come from battle. Frustration piqued. How blind could they be? Elena's blue eyes flashed briefly, her inner fire stoked, but she played along, enduring, to set the stage for reversal. Allies like Edith exchanged knowing glances, the multi-layered conflicts weaving tighter, external foes, closing in internal doubts, resolved through trust, and Elena's wounds transforming into weapons. The bar pulsed with unspoken energy, the tests forging a path toward confrontation, each layer peeling back to reveal the heroine's unyielding core. The scar's revelation hung in the air like gun smoke, a fleeting glimpse that Kovac's men dismissed with derisive snorts. But it ignited something irreversible in Elena, as the mini-climax faded, with Thorne's grip loosening in confusion, and her allies, Edith, Jake, Marcus, exchanging tense glances. Elena seized the chaos. Using the partial darkness she'd engineered, she slipped an encrypted tracker from her medical kit onto Rodriguez's boot during the scuffle, a subtle move born from years of covert ops. The device, humming with frequency-hopping tech, would lead her straight to their lair. Kovac barked orders to retreat, his scarred face twisting in suspicion. "Something's off here. Move out." They fled into the Texas night, leaving the tavern in stunned silence, but Elena was already planning her pursuit. With Jake's CIA contacts pulling strings for a discreet vehicle and Marcus providing backup intel, she tracked them southward, the signal pulsing on her concealed tablet like a heartbeat. The drive through the arid borderlands tested her endurance, the endless highway mirroring the long road of her grief, but determination fueled her justice for the 17, for Ryan, for their boy. Advancing to the lair meant crossing into enemy territory, the weapons warehouse on the Mexico border, a fortified ghost town of rusted shipping containers and barbed wire hidden amid the scrubland, where coyotes howled under a moonless sky. Elena approached on foot, her athletic frame moving with the stealth of a shadow-blonde ponytail tucked under a cap. Her full bust and toned muscles, a testament to the physical rigor she'd maintained, despite her hidden life. Physical barriers loomed immediately, IED traps, rigged along the perimeter pressure plates, disguised as debris, their faint metallic glint betraying them to her trained eye. She navigated them with painstaking care, disarming one with Edith's old trauma shears, twisting wires with the precision of a surgeon's sweat, beating on her smooth white skin. But a twist unraveled her sense of secrecies as she crested a ridge, overhearing Kovac's radio chatter inside the warehouse. His voice crackled with triumph. "The Reaper's alive, I knew it. Leaked intel from that Pentagon mole confirmed it. She's walking right into our web." The revelation hit like shrapnel. Enemies had known she survived the death. She'd faked, her cover compromised by old leaks misleading everyone, including her, about her safety. Frustration boiled. How long had they been playing her? It echoed the betrayals she'd faced in the Corps, where leaked ops cost lives, testing her trust in the system she'd sworn to protect. The stakes heightened as she neared the warehouse's core psychological depth, pulling her toward an emotional low that threatened to break her. Infiltrating through a ventilation shaft, the confined space triggered claustrophobia, her breaths coming shallow despite combat techniques. Then a deep flashback engulfed her, raw and unrelenting, touching the heart, with vulnerability that any listener who'd lost loved ones might feel. It was that day in Afghanistan 2020, the sun blistering dust choking the air. Ryan's convoy rolled into the ambush, the defective armor buckling under the IED blast like tinfoil. She rushed to him, husband dying in her arms amid the chaos, his blood warm on her hands, as she pressed futilely against the wound. "Elle, take care of our boy." He gasped, his eyes once full of laughter dimming. Their son, little Tommy, just 8, had been nearby in the base tent. Shrapnel tore through his small body, crumpling as Elena screamed, cradling him while medics swarmed. The PTSD weight crashed down now in this border. Hell, the survivor's guilt, the nightmares, where she relived every failure, her inner self, nearly breaking under the torrent. Why fight on? The world had taken everything. Why not let the darkness win? Tears stung her eyes, her decisive posture faltering for the first time, a profound low that mirrored the quiet despairs of seniors facing their own twilight regrets. Yet education and her skills pulled her back, inspiring a reminder of overcoming barriers. Setting up her sniper position on a nearby outcrop, Elena described the process in her mind like a mantra, calculating wind speed with a portable anemometer. 5 knots from the east, adjusting the scope's elevation dial accordingly. Distance measured via laser rangefinder 800 yards to the warehouse door, factoring in bullet drop from gravity's pull. Ballistics came next, accounting for the Coriolis effect in long-range shots. The Earth's rotation nudging the round slightly rightward, a physics lesson drilled into her during elite training, where women like her shattered glass ceilings. In the male-dominated sniper school, she'd faced sneers. Girls can't compute the math under fire. But she'd excelled, proving precision wasn't gendered. It inspired now a beacon against the low. Her skills born from resilience could overcome any barrier just as Edith had in Dubbeldaut. With the rifle steady scope crosshairs aligning on Kovach's silhouette inside, Elena steeled herself. The tests had led here to the inmost cave of her enemies, and her demons, heightening stakes toward collapse, but whispering of rebirth. The night air cooled her skin, but fire burned within. She was ready to strike, her heart touched by the raw truth that vulnerability forged the strongest warriors. From her sniper perch on the outcrop, the warehouse below sprawled like a predator's den, its rusted walls hiding the syndicate's arsenal of death. Elena's finger hovered near the trigger wind calculations, locked in 5 knots, east 800 yards drop. But the emotional low from her flashback clung like desert sand, her heart a storm of doubt and rage. Ryan's dying whisper, Tommy's fading cries, they fueled her now, transforming vulnerability into venom. This was the ordeal, the main climax, where life and death danced on a knife's edge peak, tension resolving the buildup of tests and wounds. Alone against Kovach's full group, 8 armed men inside her thermal scan, she knew one wrong breath could end it all. But metal wasn't born in ease. It was forged in fire, a lesson for any soul who'd stared down their demons in later years, when the body wearied, but the spirit endured. The deadly moment erupted without warning. Kovach's voice boomed from within. "Perimeter secure, load the crates. The buyer's waiting in Caracas." Elena's first shot cracked the night, a precise .308 round, shattering a guard's knee through a window slit, calculated for non-lethal takedown to draw them out. Chaos exploded. Shouts, gunfire spraying wildly into the dark. She rolled to a new position, her toned frame agile despite the scars, but they adapted fast, fanning out with military precision. "It's her, the Reaper," Rodriguez yelled, his limp slowing him as he fired blindly. Elena's second shot dropped another, grazing a shoulder to force retreat. But isolation hit hard. She was outnumbered, outgunned, the warehouse's labyrinthine interior shielding them. Frustration mounted how her secrecy failed. The earlier twist of leaked intel gnawed, but a greater shock loomed. As she hacked their comms from her tablet, tapping into their encrypted channels, the unexpected twist revealed itself, misleading in its betrayal. Static cleared to a familiar voice, Colonel Reynolds, her supposed Pentagon contact, via Jake's network whispering coordinates. "She's on the East Ridge flank her now." Reynolds, the ally she'd assumed, was fully good, a grizzled veteran who'd fed her tips on the syndicate. His treachery linked back to Wabawutoin. Era corruption, a historical shadow that deepened the wound. Records she'd glimpsed in the data tied him to descendants of arms, profiteers, who sold defective gear to both allies and Axis for profit, a cycle of greed that echoed into modern wars. Reynolds had played her sacrificing lives for kickbacks, his help a lure to draw her out. The audience might feel the gut-punch trust, shattered much like betrayals in their own lives, colleagues turning coat systems failing the faithful. Elena's world spun, near collapse returned, PTSD surging as flashbacks blended with reality, Ryan's blood mixing with imagined betrayal. Why fight a rigged game? But proving her mettle demanded action, frustration, flipping to satisfaction through skill and savvy. She countered with electronic warfare, hacking their devices mid-firefight. Their comms ran quantum encryption, advanced protocols using qubits for keys that in theory detected eavesdropping via quantum mechanics, collapsing waveforms on measurement. Real-world military applications included secure drone links and satellite relays, where unbreakable codes protected ops in hotspots like the South China Sea. But breaking it wasn't impossible. Elena exploited implementation flaws, a side-channel attack common in quantum systems. By injecting faulty photons into their fiber optic lines via a spliced drone relay she'd deployed, she triggered a man-in-the-middle vulnerability, bypassing the quantum key distribution without alerting them. It mimicked military hacks seen in exercises where hardware imperfections allowed classical computers to crack what quantum promised secure. Her tablet flooded their earpieces with white noise, sowing confusion. What the comms down, Kovac roared. From hidden positions, she unleashed precise sniper shots. Third round disabling Wilson's weapon hand, ballistics adjusted for the Coriolis twist at range. Each pull of the trigger proved her elite prowess, overcoming gender barriers that once barred women from such roles. In the core, she'd shattered records, her decisiveness, earning respect where bias had denied it. The ordeal's heart pounded in raw confrontation, Elena descending into the warehouse fray as reinforcements faltered. Kovac cornered her in a crate maze, his scarred face leering. "You should have stayed dead, Reaper." He lunged, pistol raised, but she disarmed him with a Krav Maga twist, elbow strike to his burn mark, exploiting the old wound she'd given him. Allies arrived belatedly. Marcus, bursting through a side door, Edith's kit, saving a wounded patron back at the bar via radio guidance. But Elena fought alone here, her inner strength the true weapon. Frustration peaked as Kovac snatched her fallen photo. Ryan and Tommy smiling, and tore it, deliberately grinding the pieces under his boot. "Your family pathetic. Just like you." The outrage burned, satisfying in its setup for reversal. How dare he desecrate her sacred memory? Then came the mini-climax around the 10-minute mark in this fevered tale, transforming everything. In the grapple, Kovac ripped her shirt from shoulder to back, exposing not just scars, but her tattoo, a masterpiece of black ink, a fierce eagle wings spread in defiance, clutching an anchor and globe, the Marine Corps emblem. Below Semper Audax, always bold, and the year 2020 etched in stark letters amid a dagger-pierced skull for her sniper unit. Everyone froze. Kovac's men, even Reynolds on the hacked line, shock rippling like a grenade blast. Holy, it's her, the one who took down our Mosul cell. Elena Rose no longer the weak waitress, but the unyielding warrior, her smooth white skin and full bust now symbols of resilient beauty, her blue eyes blazing with decisiveness. The transformation satisfied the built-up outrage from perceived fragility to apex bravery, proving biases wrong in a cathartic surge. She subdued Kovac with a chokehold, her voice cold. For the 17, for my family. Marcus arrived to zip-tie the rest, but the ordeal's toll lingered, betrayal's sting, the near collapse. But metal proven she stood taller, the arc tightening toward reward. In that warehouse of shadows, Elena had faced death and emerged a beacon for those who'd ever felt broken, yet bold. In the aftermath of the warehouse melee, with Kovac subdued and his men zip-tied by Marcus's swift arrival, Elena stood amid the scattered crates, her torn shirt revealing the eagle tattoo like a badge of hard-won truth. The air reeked of cordite and sweat, but a profound shift settled over the scene, a sweet resolution to the ordeal's fury, where frustration gave way to satisfaction and wounds began to heal. Sirens wailed in the distance, federal agents en route thanks to Jake's encrypted call. But first came the recognition that mattered most from the veterans' community, who'd become her unlikely family. Marcus, the ex-SEAL, with his battle-worn limp, clapped her shoulder firmly. Damn, Harper, you're the real deal. I doubted, but hell, you're tougher than any frogman I knew. His admission, gruff yet genuine, marked the turning of prejudices, inspiring a quiet nod to gender equality in a world that often overlooked women's mettle. Mrs. Edith O'Connor arrived soon after having followed in a borrowed truck with a few tavern regulars, those silver-haired vets who'd shared their own tales of bias and bravery. Edith's eyes sharp from decades of nursing, the broken softened as she embraced Elena. Child, you fought like we did back then, against the odds, against the sneers. We're proud. The group, a tapestry of eras from Bibu to modern conflicts, gathered around their acknowledgments, a chorus of respect, whispers of Semper Audax, echoing her ink hands extended in solidarity. This wasn't hollow praise. It was the community seizing her heroism, validating the inner strength she'd hidden for so long. Together, they ransacked the warehouse's office, Elena's decisive hands unlocking the safe with a code gleaned from her hack. Inside, terabytes of corruption, data ledgers of faulty arms, deals, emails tracing profits from defective gear that killed the 17, including her loved ones. Kovac's immediate capture followed agents hauling him away in cuffs, his scarred face pale with defeat. You were supposed to be dead," he muttered, but Elena's piercing blue eyes held no mercy, only justice. The sweet outcome washed over her like a Texas rain after drought, emotional payoff in waves of relief. Alone for a moment amid the crates, Elena retrieved the torn photo from Kovac's pocket, piecing it together with trembling fingers. Ryan's warm smile, Tommy's innocent joy. She hugged it to her chest, tears streaming down her smooth white skin, the full weight of her loss mingling with victory's balm. "I did it for you," she whispered, her voice cracking with the raw vulnerability that made her human, not superhuman. Allies gathered anew their prejudices publicly. Shed Jake, the former CIA man, admitting, I saw you as fragile, my mistake. You're the anchor we needed. Marcus echoed. No more doubts. Strength like yours. It's what wins wars. This transformation inspired themes of gender equality and inner strength, a beacon for listeners in their golden years, reminding them that biases could crumble, that a woman's resilience like Edith's in the trenches or Elena's in the shadows held boundless power. The community bonded closer veterans, young and old, sharing stories under the border stars, Elena's heroism, a bridge across generations. Yet, as the data uploaded to secure servers, a small twist emerged. To propel forward momentum, the files revealed a larger network tentacles stretching beyond Kovac. Social links traced ongoing corruption from WTO arms deals, profiteers selling to both sides for gain to modern Afghanistan contracts, where similar greed fueled endless conflicts. Reynolds's betrayal was just a thread in a vast web, setting up broader stakes that whispered the fight wasn't over. Elena's heart stirred, not with fear, but resolve. This reward wasn't an end. It was fuel for the road ahead. Her eagle tattoo, a symbol that true victory lay in persistent pursuit of justice, inspiring all who dared to see beyond the surface. The border warehouse faded into the rear view as Elena drove north through the breaking dawn, the Texas horizon blushing with first light. Kovac's curses echoed in her ears, but the seized data terabytes of damning evidence hummed securely on her encrypted drive, a sword seized from the heart of corruption. Victory's glow lingered her eagle tattoo, a fresh reminder of transformation. But the road back to the Fortress Tavern carried new tensions, bridging the climax's rush to deeper reckonings. Threats persisted like shadows at noon. En route, her secure phone buzzed with alerts Kovac had escaped custody during transfer, a mysterious blackout aiding his flight. Anonymous threats followed via encrypted messages. The Reaper's hunt ends here. We know where you hide. The syndicate's reach flexed, deepening her internal struggle. Was this win Pyrrhic, or a call to press on returning to the tavern felt like stepping into a warmer world? The familiar scent of aged wood and coffee greeting her as patrons. Those resilient elders who'd witnessed her heroism clapped her back with quiet pride. Edith enveloped her in a hug, whispering, "You did good, child, like we did in our day." Jake and Marcus shared nods of respect, prejudices fully shed, but Elena's heart tugged elsewhere. Alone in her small apartment above the bar, the challenges intensified, an inner war over revealing her full identity publicly. Should she go viral, expose the syndicate's depths, and risk everything, her anonymity, her safety? Or fade back into shadows, letting the data speak for itself? The struggle mirrored the quiet dilemmas of seniors facing legacy. Speak truth and court chaos, or preserve peace at truth's expense. Doubt-gnawed PTSD whispers, urging retreat, her decisive nature clashing with the vulnerability she'd bared. What touched her heart, deepest, urging resilience amid the turmoil, was an old letter from Ryan, tucked in her wallet like a talisman. Unfolding the worn paper stained with Afghan dust, she read his words aloud, voice trembling. "El, if the world's weight ever crushes you, remember you're bolder than any storm. Fight on for Tommy for us. Love eternal." Written during a rare leave, it captured his warmth, his belief in her strength, urging perseverance when hope waned. Tears fell onto the page, the emotional artifact bridging past loss to present purpose, reminding her that love endured beyond graves. For listeners who'd clutched similar mementos, faded letters from wars, or lost loves, it evoked compassion, a heart-touching nod to how personal artifacts fueled inner growth. Yet a twist sharpened the stakes, misleading the sense of completeness, sifting the data en route. Evidence pointed to the network's insider in the Pentagon, coded references to Eagle One, a high-ranking mole who'd leaked her survival, perhaps even orchestrated Kovach's escape. Victory wasn't sealed. It was a facade, the syndicate's web sprawling deeper from profiteers to current cabals. Frustration reignited. How far did the rot go? This revelation deepened her struggle. Logical growth emerging, no more solo hunts. True justice demanded alliance exposure. The road back wasn't retreat, but recalibration. Tensions bridging to resurrection, her spirit scarred, yet bold, ready for the final stand. The anonymous threats and Pentagon insider's shadow loomed like storm clouds over Elena's road. Back, but Ryan's letter, its words of resilience, a lifeline, ignited a final spark. No more hiding. The twist in the data demanded exposure. In a quiet Texas motel, Elena set up her tablet, heart pounding as she recorded a viral video confession. "My name is Major Elena Harper, United States Marine Corps." She began, her piercing blue eyes staring into the camera, blonde ponytail framing a face etched with scars and strength. "I was declared dead in Afghanistan 2020, a lie to hunt the corrupt who killed my husband, my son, and 17 others with defective gear." The major twist unfolded as she uploaded the files exposing the global corruption network, not as a modern scourge, but one rooted in history. A historical revelation misled all assumptions about the threat's newness, links traced back to WW2, weapons companies that sold faulty arms to both Allied and Axis sides, for-profit profiteers like Reynolds's forebears, who prioritized greed over allegiance, fueling cycles of war from Normandy beaches to Afghan valleys. This wasn't isolated betrayal. It was a systemic rot, misleading the audience about evil's modernity, touching hearts with the timeless pain of sacrificed lives for ledgers. The video went live, spreading like wildfire across social media and news outlets, Elena revealing herself to the world. Victory surged, not just against external enemies, like Kovach recaptured hours later in a raid triggered by her intel, but against the internal military prejudices that had haunted her. United action with the Phantom Squad, her new name for the ghosts, a network of hidden warriors like her, scattered vets who'd operated in shadows, sealed the win. They converged, virtually apologies, flowing in transformative waves. Marcus' voice thick with emotion. "I was blind to your strength. Forgive this old SEAL for his biases." Jake added, "You taught us equality isn't words, it's action." Edith, her mentor's eyes misty, shared a Wubu-Wide-2 tale of overlooked nurses saving generals, paralleling Elena's fight. "We rose together then, we do now." This team solidarity touched emotions deeply, a heartwarming chorus of growth that inspired resilience against systemic bias, reminding seniors of their own triumphs over outdated norms, racial, gender, or age that once silenced voices. To amplify the exposure, Elena employed steganography methods, hiding data in innocuous files for safe dissemination. This technique, with roots in military history, used by spies in WW to embed messages in photos via invisible ink or pixel alterations, hid terabytes of evidence in seemingly harmless tavern snapshots. Modern steganography embedded binary code in image pixels or audio waves, undetectable, without keys, allowing secure transmission past firewalls. Elena described it in the video. "Like our forebears, hiding intel in letters off home, we cloak truth in the everyday pixels, shifted by one value-burying ledgers and family pics." It had real-world applications in covert ops, from embedding troop movements in propaganda posters during the war to today's cyber defenses against hacks. By releasing these innocent files, she bypassed the insider's blocks, the data blooming online like hidden seeds. The resurrection was complete, defeating the Eagle in D.C. Reynolds arrested in a dawn raid, his weighty linked corruption exposed. Not just foes felled, but prejudices shattered through Phantom Squad's unities, inspiring a wave of resilience. Women in the military messaged her, "You broke the ceiling we couldn't." Veterans shared stories of bias, overcome emotions raw in apologies, and alliances formed. Elena's inner conflicts resolved tightly. External syndicate crippled internal doubts, silenced historical depths, uniting it all. She stood reborn, her eagle tattoo, a symbol of bold revival touching hearts, with the truth that systemic wins came from collective courage, a beacon for those who'd ever felt invisible, yet invincible. The viral video's ripples spread far beyond the Texas horizon. Elena's confession, a stone cast into the pond of global conscience, stirring waves that toppled empires of corruption. In the days that followed, arrests cascaded like dominoes. Reynolds in D.C., his wood-tainted legacy exposed. Syndicate lieutenants in Berlin and Moscow, their quantum shields shattered by steganography's clever veil. Government scrambled Pentagon reviews, launched defense contracts, frozen amid public outcry. But Elena's resurrection wasn't just takedowns. It was rebirth, a grand message woven from her trials. True strength comes from within, and community support, overcoming prejudices for justice. This elixir, the profound wisdom extracted from her journey, she shared not as a lone warrior, but as a leader. Appointed to head a new oversight committee on defense corruption, Elena testified before Congress, her voice, steady blue eyes unyielding. "We've let biases blind us gender, rank, age, while greed devours our heroes." She declared, inspiring lawmakers and viewers alike. For the next generation, she became a beacon, young women in boot camp citing her as proof that barriers could crumble. Families scarred by loss, finding solace in her story of surpassing grief. Seniors, those wise souls who'd endured their own prejudices, nodded in recognition her tale, a mirror to their resilience, urging them to mentor, to speak to ensure justice endured. The aftermath unfolded in quiet triumphs and lingering shadows, an open ending laced with realism's bite. Network remnants slithered in the dark, anonymous pings on her phone, hinting at untouchable council members, perhaps in Switzerland or Hong Kong, adapting like viruses. Kovach's syndicate was crippled, not killed. Wars would persist, human flaws guaranteeing conflict, but Elena stood ready, her eagle tattoo, a symbol of vigilance etched on her back. "Semper audax," it whispered, always bold, a reminder that phantoms like her thrived in wait. In a poignant scene that touched the heart with tender finality, Elena visited the grave of her husband and son. In Arlington, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot, like echoes of fallen comrades. Kneeling on the cool grass, she traced their names on the stone, Ryan Harper, loving father. Tommy Harper, beloved son, tears mingling with a soft rain. "We did it," she murmured, placing the pieced-together photo at the base. "Your legacy lives not in vengeance, but in vigilance." The wind stirred, carrying whispers of peace, reflecting on how one woman's wounds had birthed a movement. For listeners in their twilight years, it evoked reflections on their own legacies, the quiet acts of courage that outlasted battles, the community bonds that healed divides. Yet the elixir's true power lay in its shareable depth, an inspiration that lingered like a well-told tale around a fireside. Elena's committee reformed protocols, embedding lessons from her ops steganography, now standard in intel sharing quantum flaws, patched to protect the vulnerable. It educated subtly strength wasn't brute force, but inner fortitude community, not isolation, but alliance. "Phantoms don't die. We just wait for the moment," she quoted in her final address, a line from Ryan's letter that became a mantra for the Phantom Squad. They dispersed, but connected Edith, mentoring young nurses, Marcus training recruits on bias-blind tactics, Jake safeguarding veteran hubs. The open ending promised more remnants would rise, but so would guardians like Elena, her decisive spirit a call to arms for all. In that graveside moment as the sun broke through clouds, she rose, tattoo flexing with each breath, a woman reborn, inspiring us to embrace our hidden strengths, to overcome prejudices with justice's unyielding hand. If this story touches you, like and subscribe to support Hidden Heroes. Share your experiences overcoming prejudices in the comments. Our community is stronger than ever.